Well, it is now a little after 3, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is a webinar about how to plan for a new school year. We're going to go over some ideas for goal setting and just how to generally approach how you want to do your schooling and what you want to accomplish for this year. So the first step that you want to consider is you want to look and see where you are right now. This means you, your spouse, your children, just in general, where is everyone right now? So what you want to do is you want to evaluate where you are in every aspect of your life, and then you want to decide where you want to be in 5 years. This could be financially, it could be ministry-wise, it could be family goals-wise, it could be goals for your children, it could be careers. Just in general, where do you want your family to be in the next 5 years? And then you need to decide what you need to do to accomplish the goals. The most important thing is to set long-range goals. I recommend setting a goal for 3 to 5 years. And then set a goals for where you want to be in a year, and then 6 months, maybe even a month. And depending on your family dynamics and situation, you may need to set weekly goals. But what I recommend is that you really focus first on where you want to be in the next 6 months. You need to decide what role you, your spouse, and your children play in your family. You need to decide what tasks they are to accomplish, what their role in achieving these goals are. Then when it comes to school, you need to think through each individual child. You need to think through where they are in language arts, English reading, whatever you would like to call it, mathematics, social studies, science, and social skills. We will explore these in more depth as we go. The first one we're going to suggest is language arts. And again, you need to look at the age and the ability of your child. Are they a beginning reader? Are they are they an experienced reader? Just think about what kind of reader they are. So anyway, you want to decide, are they fluently reading? What we mean by fluency is deciding how well they can read as far as the ease of their reading. This could include how many words they read in a period of time, how well they pronounce the words, and how smoothly they read. Then you want to look at their reading comprehension. Just because a child can fluently read a book does not mean that they are understanding what they are reading. You want to look and see, okay, once they've read the book, can they tell me what has happened in the book? Can they tell me the beginning, the middle, the end? Can they draw conclusions about what they have read? Can they apply what they have read to other situations? So that is what we mean by reading comprehension. You need to look and see where your child is in relation to their progress of themselves. We do not compare child to child. You want to see growth in your child. And then for children, you want to look at handwriting. Handwriting is becoming a lost art in the age of computers and word processing. But it is important to be able to write legibly and neatly. What I am a big proponent of is not necessarily making mistake-free writing. That is not possible. What you want to focus on is, can they recognize when they make a mistake? Do they recognize that a word doesn't look right? Do they recognize that maybe that word isn't spelled quite the way it's supposed to be? They may not know how to spell it, but they might be able to recognize that there is a mistake there. So handwriting is a big one you want to take into consideration. I really think we need to teach handwriting, and along with handwriting is the importance of cursive writing. Now, if you have a child who has some delays in their motor skills, you might try pushing them on to cursive writing instead of teaching printing. Cursive flows more natural, so that's something you can play around with. And then the final part of language arts is composition. What you want to do is look and see how they compose their written work. Do they have an introduction? Do they have supporting sentences? Do they have a conclusion? Do they know how to find information and put it in their own words? Do they understand what paraphrasing is? Do they understand how to summarize? Those paraphrasing and summarizing are going to be important if your children are going to go to college. So you want to kind of see where they are in these areas before you can determine where they need to be. Okay, the next area is in mathematics. Now, when you are trying to gauge where your child is, I suggest the first thing you look at is their basic facts. What they need to know is how to name 10. What I mean by naming 10 is, do they know that 7 plus 3 is another name for 10? If they can name 10, it will help them out as they get into the higher digits of addition, subtraction. Another thing, you want to make sure they master their basic facts. They should be able to add and subtract up to 20 in their head. Now, this may be achieved at different rates, and that is okay. But that should be your goal. And if your kids are already doing multiplication and division and they don't know how to add or subtract, it is okay to set multiplication and division aside and go back and focus on addition and subtraction. And then for multiplication, you need to know the multiplication tables. It is very important that if your child is able, they memorize the multiplication table. And they realize that multiplication is repeated addition. That is very important. And then another area that you want to focus on is division. Teach them the division rules. Teach them how to tell if a number is divisible by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. If they can remember those rules, they will be able to do multi-digit multiplication and division much faster. They may not know the answer right away, but they will know where to start to find the answer. Excuse me. Measurement is huge. Now, the way I recommend that you teach measurement is through cooking, as far as liquid and dry measurements. Have children involved in your cooking from the time they are 3 or 4 years old. Teach them how to measure cups. They may not know what they're measuring at that point, but they get the idea that there's different sizes. And they understand the concept of bigger and smaller, or larger and greater. You may not be teaching those concepts just yet, but you are introducing them to the ideas of larger than or greater than and less than. And then again, patterns are very important to know in mathematics. Are they able to pick up on patterns? Are they able to decide to continue a pattern? Can they recognize patterns in numbers, colors, shapes, anything? And then all algebra and geometry is taking everything you learned in elementary school and putting them together. So you will need to know, you will need to help them figure out how each aspect of mathematics fits together and how they work together. So that's kind of where you want to gauge. on where your child is for math. And then you go to social studies. I have broken social studies down into 4 main groups. There is history, government, geography. Now, I have added societal structure. That could also be government, that could also be history. But what I mean by that is for your younger children. Do they understand the dynamics of the family? Do they understand family traditions? Culture? Do they understand time? Just you can break social studies down. In the elementary grades, it's all about the family in your local city and just learning how society works. Until you understand how society works, you cannot study history, government, or geography. So the first step to teaching social studies is to focus on the societal structure and then go from there. And then in science, you want to look and decide where your children are in physical science, life science, and earth and space science. Um, Again, this is taught at varying levels throughout the grades. I recommend focusing on life science and earth and space science for up to about 6th grade. I would not necessarily bother using a textbook to teach these, but you would need to look and see what they know and what you want them to know. And then social skills. This is good to evaluate. I just have a few things here that you can note. Just how they interact with peers they know. Do they introduce themselves to other kids they don't know and include those in their play? Do they know how to express emotions using words rather than actions? Do they know what to do when a strange adult or a strange older child comes up and talks to them? And of course, do they know how to follow directions? One thing that is really key is that children understand right from wrong. You want to see where they are, and all of these things just kind of stem up to do they know right from wrong. That is the most basic thing that you want your child to understand. And then just some other notes that I have jotted down. Do they know how to play well with others? Do they use manners? Manners are a lost art in our society. Do they know how to say please, thank you, excuse me? Do they know not to interrupt? Do they know how to interrupt if it's important? You need to think through what your child knows in all these things and where you want them to be. And another big one is empathy for others. That is one. Can they identify with how somebody else feels in that situation and what they should have done differently? Okay. And then the next ones we're going to look at are music, art, and phys ed. Music, again, this a simple knowledge of music would include a knowledge of the genres of recorded music like classic rock, classical music, reggae, pop, country, just your popular genres, knowing what they are. And also a knowledge of the basic instrument families. You've got your woodwinds, you've got your brass, your percussion. Do they know what instruments go in those categories? And then they should know the beginnings of how to read basic music. And they should also know important musicians. So you want to gauge where your child is in this spectrum of knowledge, because that will guide what you want to accomplish for this year. And then art, again, basic. They should know the color wheel. They should know how to mix colors. They should know uh, a simple version of art history. They don't have to get into the entire art history, but know the different periods of art, genres of art, and they should also study important artists. And then in phys ed, they should know the rules for popular sports like football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and also they should know how to play tag, um, kickball, and all the other outside games that kids play on the playground. Just they shouldn't just know how to go out and have fun. They should be able to amuse themselves outside. And then as far as skills go, your child should be able to run, skip, hop on one foot for each foot, stand on one foot. This is for about 20 seconds. And then know how to do basic exercises. That is what your phys ed curriculum should consist of. Okay, the next thing you need to decide is where you are going. So now you've taken stock of where your child is in all of these areas. So now you need to decide what is a reasonable goal for my child in these areas. This is where your goal setting comes in. We talked a little bit about goals at the beginning of the webinar. Those were goals for the family, where you want long-term and short-term goals for the family. Now you're looking at each individual child. You need to look at your child's abilities, their strengths, their weaknesses. For a long-term goal, you might decide in 6 months, I want my child to be able to recognize, say, 20 of the 100 sight words on a list. Or it might be, I want my child to be able to read and comprehend chapter books. That's just for language arts. You want to do that for each area. You want to decide where you want your child to be in 6 months. Then you want to break down those goals into short-term goals and decide, okay, for each of the 6 months, this is where we should be. And then go from there to the week. So, and you may be wondering, how do we do that? Well, scheduling is what we're going to discuss next. The most important thing is to think about your family dynamics and your daily schedule. Not everybody works a traditional 9 to 5 Monday through Friday every week. And that's okay. Everybody's schedules are different. Your family may not do well in the mornings, but may be better at working on school in the afternoon and taking the mornings to get up, have a routine, go through chores, relax, spend some time as a family, and then do school. Or your family may be the type that you do better getting up by 7 o'clock in the morning, breakfast at 8, and then you do your work till about 10 or 11, and then you go about and do your chores and your other engagements. You need to look at what time and what day is best for you. You do not have to do school Monday through Friday. You may decide, you know what, we can only do school 4 days a week. And that's fine. You need to look at your schedule and decide what works best for you. I've assessed a family whose the father was home in the morning and worked in the evening. So what we talked about was them doing their schoolwork in the evening while the father was at work so that they could get their schoolwork, they could be a family when he was home. You just have to look and see what's best for your family. Then you have to decide, are you going to do your schoolwork in the morning? Like say 8 o'clock? Are you going to do it in the early afternoon around 1 o'clock? Are you going to do it in the late afternoon around 4? Or if you have young children who take naps, do you want to wait and do your workbook time with your older ones while the younger ones are taking their nap so you can have peace and quiet to do your schoolwork? Again, I realize nap time is not always the smoothest, but it's a thought. Okay, another thing you need to decide is what you will allow to interrupt your school time. Obviously, there are certain things that should interfere with school, like doctor's appointments, emergencies, just to name a couple. I'm sure each family will have those things that are more important than school. Visiting family could be another one. And then there are unimportant interruptions, like your kid just wants to play a game instead of do school. Well, is it more worthwhile for the child to take those 10 minutes and play a game and then do school? Or is the routine more important for that child to stay in routine and do their school and then play the game? Those are all decisions you and your spouse have to make. You have to decide what will you allow to interrupt your school time. Now, one of the questions I get a lot is, how long should my school day be? I don't have a cut and dry answer for this. My answer is you should base it upon your children, their age. The younger your child, the less actual time you will spend in quote unquote school, because their tasks are not as involved as a middle schooler or a high schooler. I didn't say they were less difficult. I said they were not as involved, so they may not take as long. Another thing you want to look at is the maturation of your child. Can your child sit for an hour, or do they need to take breaks? It may be that you have 3 times a day you do school that have a 2-hour break in between the 3 segments, and that's okay. You can break up your school into different parts of the day. In fact, that's one of the things you have to decide. Are you going to do all of your school, sit down, everybody does it all at one time, or are you going to break it up into different parts of the day? These are all questions you have to decide when you're setting up your school year. You have to look at your schedule, your children, decide how long can they focus and be engaged in a task. And again, how difficult the task. You want to go for quality of task over quantity. If you have a child that really hates math, what I suggest you do, set a timer for 10 minutes and say, we're going to work on this for 10 minutes. And, you expect the child to be fully engaged, not complaining, learning in those 10 minutes. That child needs to know that when those 10 minutes are up, math is done. You will get more work out of your child in those 10 minutes than if you spent all day arguing and fighting with your child to get the task done. A lot of times when a child is fighting you on a task, it's one of two things. Either they don't know how to do it. Plain and simple. They don't know how to do it. It's overwhelming. It's too much. So they freak out because they think it's so hard. I'm not going to get to do what I want to do because it's going to take me 3 hours to do. That's what's going on in their head. Or they simply don't want to do it. And I understand. There are days I don't want to do what I have to do, but the lesson is you may not want to do it, but you have to do it. But by setting that timer for 10 minutes, you are alleviating the stress of this will take forever. And if you can go to a teacher store and get a visual timer, that's even better. A visual timer has a ribbon of time that gets smaller as the time goes on, so they can visually see how much time is left for the task. And then what should your school day include? You do not have to do every subject every day. In fact, I recommend you do not do that. You need to decide what you do daily. Math should be done every day. Now, it may be some days you only do a skills review for 15 minutes. Say 2 days a week you do, probably Friday you do a skills review. It's easier, less demanding, but it's still keeping them engaged in the work and it's reviewing what they already know. Then you may do an intense lesson 2 or 3 days a week. But I suggest you do math every day. Reading is another one I suggest you do every day. Again, you may decide on one day a week, all they have to do is read for 20 minutes, and that's their reading lesson. Other days they have to do a language arts lesson with some grammar, some reading skills, things like that. But you have to set it up how you think it would work for you and your child and what you feel is important. Then you have to decide what you're going to do, say 2 or 3 times a week. This is where your science and your social studies would come in. In some people take part of the year and focus on science and focus on social studies the other part of the year. Some do them together. Again, it's really up to you how you want to focus on it. This is what works best for your family. And then you want to decide what you want to work on weekly. Are there some tasks that are important, but you think your children will be fine with only doing them once a week? That's fine. Just decide what those tasks are. Now remember, the most important thing about homeschooling is to be flexible. Remember, life is school. So do not get caught up in the lie of I'm not doing enough. Trust me, you are. Life is school. Every aspect of what you do all day long is school. You are constantly teaching your children. So just be aware that everything you do can count as school. Okay, where should we have school? So you need to decide where are you going to have your school during the day. And I'm talking a physical location. You want to make sure it is a consistent location because you want it to be something that the children associate with learning, associate with book work, associate with I'm calm, I'm sitting in my seat, I'm actively engaged. You also want to make it conducive to doing schoolwork. You don't want a lot of distractions. You don't want a lot of negativity. One thing you want, in fact, there's this one company that I highly admire. There is one way you lose your job at this company, and it is if you never fail. Now, this may sound really odd. You want to teach your kids how to fail. Everybody will fail at some point. You need to teach them how to do that. And by having an environment that's conducive to school, that is what I'm talking about. You want to teach them, hey, it's okay if you fail. It's okay if you make mistakes. The question is, what do I do with it? Okay, I failed. What do I do? Do I get upset? Do I pout? Do I throw a temper tantrum? Do I let it ruin my day? Or do I look, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? What do I need to do differently? How can I do this differently? What's another approach I never thought of? So by thinking through how you are going to approach the environment will determine a lot on the success of your children. If you have an environment that is open to failure, open to succeeding, open to being yourself, they will do better. But most important of all on the location, make sure that it works for you. Make sure it is something that you can do on a consistent basis. You've got plenty of space, and your children know when we come to this area, it's time for school. Okay, I'm going to talk about younger siblings. We've got about 20 minutes left, so I think I can do this. Some of you have children who are not yet in school. They may be toddlers, they may be infants. We're going to look at how do you handle younger siblings during your school day. And I've kind of put younger siblings into two categories, mobile and not mobile. When a child is not mobile, all you need to do is set up a playpen area that you can put your child in and give them special toys that they only get during this time. They only get those toys during school. Those are their school times. And then again, when they're mobile, you can do the same thing. Create a tub of special toys. Another thing you can do is have a snack time when you're doing school. Now, I suggest that you teach children to snack on healthy items like carrot sticks, celery sticks and peanut butter, pretzels, whatever your family deems a healthy snack. Your toddlers will be able to go back and forth between sitting at the table eating their snack and playing with their special toys. Now, I realize this will not work every day, but this is something you can do to facilitate a smoother time of school. For toddlers, include them in the school day. Amazon has plenty of toddler workbooks available. These include pre-writing activities. They include drawing, coloring. Those are all excellent tasks for toddlers to do because they work on fine motor skills. You can work on pencil grip. You can work on the fact that the written word goes from left to right. You can work on how to read a book, how to look at a book, what direction the book goes. Those are all skills that children need to learn. And the toddler age is the best age to learn that. So have them have 10 minutes that they have work that they can do. Toddlers, again, we're talking toddlers, this is from about 2 to 4, should be focusing on knowing their letters, knowing their shapes, their colors, and recognizing patterns and being able to continue patterns. So if you don't know what to work on with your toddlers, you can pull any of these activities. Just search toddler worksheets on the internet and you will find tons of worksheets that are free that you can use with your toddler. There are also hands-on games you can use with your toddler. Okay, I'm going to open it up for a question and answer time if you would like to send in any questions through the chat pane. And something else, if there's anything in specific you would want me to address, go ahead and start typing in your chat pane and sending them in to me, and I will address them now. And then I would also like you to give me feedback about if you found this helpful, what topics you would like to see in the future, and then also what days and times work best for you to have to attend these webinars. Because my plan is to do a series of these maybe once a month, every 2 weeks. We'll see what everybody's flexibility is. And then also if you would recommend these to a friend and just kind of what helps you. So go ahead and send in your responses and I'll wait a few minutes, and if I don't get any responses then we'll close. But it's up to you if you want to send in a few responses. And if you don't have any questions, feel free to go ahead and log out. And if you think of anything later, feel free to message me and I will let you know and respond to your questions as we get a chance, and I may consider them for future webinars. Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any responses, and that's okay. So we will go ahead. Oh, okay. We got a response, but that was just answering the feedback questions. So we'll go ahead and close. And if you think of anything to respond, to let me know, give me feedback, any topic relative to you that you want more training in, feel free to let me know and we'll get a webinar scheduled. Thank you and have a good day.